Today I have a video from two of the most insufferable people online. Yes, you got it right. Piers Morgan and Douglas Murray. The creep Douglas Murray. Let's get straight into the video because this is going to be bad for my mental health.
Politics in America is very much a team sport. And if the captain of the team changes his tactics, you go along with it. Donald Trump better be right on this issue, because if not, he will have made totally unnecessary enemies of some of America's closest and most historic allies. This is the disruption that Donald Trump promised.
The American intelligence report suggests for every Hamas terrorist who's been killed, someone with the same ideology has already stepped up to replace them.
This death cult idea that you simply have to educate the next generation to try to annihilate their neighbors. It should be that stops.
Is he talking about Israel? Yeah, probably.
Donald Trump was the first person among world leaders to say something new. The Gaza is pretty unlivable at the moment, so why?
How can you spin that new? Completely horrible. Yeah, it's new. Is new always good? Just to say something new? This is their intellectual guy who writes books.
Why don't we encourage people who want to leave to leave? It's at least a new idea.
I'm agreeing with a lot more of what you said.
So, but what if it's a... Should we not just judge things if they're good ideas, not just if they're new? Okay.
Say, Douglas, and it's becoming increasingly disturbing.
Oh, it's great news.
We know you're a right-winger, Piers Morgan. You don't fool anyone that you're this kind of centrist. You've literally had Megyn Kelly on the other day, and now you have Douglas Murray. You're not fooling anyone, brother.
Douglas Murray has been a powerful and polarising voice on the two major conflicts of our time. He's also reported on them firsthand, with multiple trips to both Ukraine and Israel since their wars began. A recent essay roiled MAGA by accusing the movement of absorbing Kremlin narratives on Putin, which further underscored his status as an independent thinker. But nothing has won him more plausible.
That makes you an independent thinker now on the right. If you criticise the kowtowing to Russia on the right now, somehow. And it just shows how inconsistent Douglas Murray is in his ideology. Russia invade Ukraine illegally. Rightly so, criticise that. I'm on your side. Israel illegally occupy Palestine. Oh, no. Israel is the victim. Insane, just insane.
Audit or protests than his absolutist take on Israel's war against Hamas. This photograph of Murray illustrates the whole point. He was inside Rafah, sitting in the very chair occupied by Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar before he was obliterated by an Israeli drone strike. Well, supporters saw a heroic and high-stakes troll of a murderous terrorist. Critics found outrage and a final insult to an apparent martyr. Well, Murray's new book on democracies and death cults is already making waves. And Douglas Murray, I'm delighted to say, joins me on Uncensored. Again, Douglas, great to see you.
It's really good to be back with you, Piers.
You know, whenever I...
Is that meant to be a reference to democracies, Israel, death cult, Hamas? Israel is the death cult right now. I'm sorry, unequivocally, unironically, the amount of people being killed in Palestine.
I think I'm busy or travelling a lot. I look at your schedule and realise I'm not even at first base. There's a hell
Grifters do be grifting.
of a lot going on. We'll get to your book in a few minutes, but there's a lot going on in the world. And since Donald Trump became president, it feels like, you know, depending on what your view is, either incredible high energy or incredible chaos. What do you make of where we are? We're here today on Liberation Day, as Trump is calling it, where the entire planet is about to be tariffed within an inch of their lives. What do you make of all this?
I don't think it's chaos, certainly, but there's certainly a...
The stock markets have plummeted massively. The most they have in decades. Unequivocally, this is chaos. For small businesses across America, who were pre-buying a lot of lumber, aluminium from Canada. People are really worried. If you've got a small business in America, 34% tariffs on China, they've been reciprocated. That's going to increase costs for a lot, like trillions of dollars of products that America buy from China. This is chaos. This is chaos.
A huge amount of disruption. The thing is, Piers, as you know, this is the disruption that Donald Trump promised, and it is the disruption that his voters voted for.
Is it though? People voted for lowered gas prices, grocery prices, eggs, resolution to the Ukraine Russian war in 24 hours. They've not got that. Trump said he would reduce grocery prices on day one. He's not done it. He's implemented vast tariffs, some of the highest we've seen in almost 100 years. People didn't vote for this. Yes, he spoke about tariffs, but not a blanket tariff that is going to unequivocally increase prices on their products coming from China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, phones, clothes, technology. It's going to go up. The manufacturers are going to shift the price onto the consumers. They're not going to take those taxes, those tariffs, and take the hit, are they? Obviously.
They asked for exactly the things that he is giving them.
I don't think that's true. I just don't think that on tariffs, he vaguely gestured at tariffs. He wasn't very specific. He had concepts of a plan for healthcare. He didn't really have a plan. He was saying he's going to deport people. He didn't lay out detail. The only detail he did lay out is grocery prices would be lowered on day one. They haven't. 24 hours to resolve the Ukraine-Russia war. He hasn't. So when he gives detail, again, he knows the famous line from Goebbels, never make specific promises that you can't fulfill. He's not that guy. That's why he does vaguely jest, we're going to deport illegal aliens. Tariffs are the most beautiful thing. Reduce grocery price. All vague stuff. But people didn't vote for this. People didn't vote for increased prices that tariffs will bring. They voted for lower prices. So, actually, people didn't vote for this. They didn't vote. Yes, they voted for deportations, but they didn't vote for illegal deportations of people with visas and green cards and resident citizens. Very different. And I think most people don't support this. There's a reason why there's mass protests across America.
They are getting what they wanted. And, people can complain about some of that, but it's not like Donald Trump didn't talk about tariffs on the...
Yeah, very vaguely. He didn't talk about blanket tariffs. He didn't talk about trade war with Mexico and Canada and China. 34% tariffs. Now reciprocated. Alienated much of the world. He didn't talk about that. But this is the theme of Douglas Murray. He's just dishonest.
Campaign trail. It's not like he didn't talk about deportations of illegal migrants in the US on the...
Yes, but what about legal people with visas? Didn't talk about that. I mean, maybe that was the subtext. Kind of maybe obvious with a fascist. But he didn't talk about that, Douglas, did he?
Campaign trail. This is literally what people voted for. And the best critique, as far as I can see, that any of Trump's critics can have, apart from criticisms of specific policies, is the president is actually doing what...
Apart from specific criticism of policies. Wow. Okay. Apart from all his policies that you can specifically criticize, apart from that, you can't criticize him.
The president promised to do. Now, I know a lot of people are unhappy with what he's doing, and other people are unused, really, to actually political leaders doing what they say they're going to do when they get into office. But that is the case with Trump.
He kind of hasn't, though. The big thing he's ran on was deportation. Deporting 20 million people. That ain't happening. Reduced grocery prices on day one. Didn't happen. An old end to the war in Ukraine. Didn't happen. Tariffs, which are happening, but are going to be a disaster that lead not to reduced prices, but increased prices. So he's failed on his own terms already. already, and it's been a couple of months.
Trump. And we'll see. There are all sorts of quibbles and all sorts of. There are some serious things already, it has to be said, that have gone wrong. But we're more than 2 months into the new administration now. And I think if you compare this administration to Trump 1 in 2016 to 20, it's night and day when it comes to the pandemonium accusation.
Yeah, I mean,
It was pandemonium in both cases. It was crazy. Trump wasn't expecting to win in the first term. They were like, Melania wasn't happy. She was like, what the hell's going on? He got rid of ban in 6 months. People like the overturn of staffers was massive, complete chaos. They were trying to rein him in every day. He was a toddler. He was acting like a child. He was throwing tantrums. It was chaos. Read Richard Wolff's Fire and Fury book. He goes into detail of how chaotic it was. And it's also chaotic now. But you could argue it was more chaotic then than it is now. But it's a different type of chaos now, where we don't know what's going to happen with these tariffs. Already bad things are happening. Is it going to get worse? How much worse is it going to get?
like I say, there's a lot going on. But one thing that is not getting enough attention, I don't think, is what he's achieved already on the southern border. You and I have talked about this.
Because it was such a big problem, wasn't it? No, it's a manufactured problem. Fascism does like to do fascism.
Many times. But there's been an almost complete stop of this extraordinary tidal wave of illegal migration over the southern border in under 3 months.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, one of the things I'm not sure that enough people outside of America are aware of is that this is something that it's not an abstract issue. It's something that affects cities like the one I'm sitting in at the moment, New York. When the southern border crisis was at its worst, southern governors, absolutely overwhelmed by illegal migrants, started busing them up to cities like this one. And basically the city ran out of hotel rooms to give to the migrants, ran out of housing for them. The mayor of New York, a Democrat, Eric Adams, said that the city of New York was facing an existential crisis, a catastrophe. So yes, remedying that is going to be difficult. And I'm sure, and there already have been cases of people who have been deported from the US who appear not to be people who ought to have been deported. And that's terrible, that should be reversed. But it's sort of inevitable when you're trying to reverse something as massive as the Biden-era border weakness.
How is it inevitable? They know. They're saying, oh, we can't get them back from the El Salvador prisons. How is that inevitable? It's not inevitable at all. You need evidence. You need to figure out who these people are, if they're illegal or not. How is that inevitable? See, that's where we fall into the fascism of what Trump represents, because none of this is inevitable. If you believe in due process, he's talking about democracies and death cults. If you believe in democracy, you believe in the rule of law. Therefore, due process. And also, do I have to say he's lying completely about New York? And these people are insufferable. That's all they care about, is bashing illegals to deflect from any people at the top, the establishment, these guys who represent the establishment. They do, the billionaires. So we can't talk about inequality. We have to talk about a manufactured problem. And it is manufactured because illegal immigration in America isn't a problem. People who work, they contribute to tax, they work hard, they are less likely to commit crime, objectively, the data, because why would you? Because you're going to get thrown out. They contribute massively. Make them legal citizens, give them citizenship, they contribute massively. This could be a normal conversation that we have, but they have to make it about just demonizing people who seek to help and love their country.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me on the question of the deportations, what they've got to be careful about, nobody objects to genuine, horrendous criminals who are here illegally in America. I'm in the States as well at the moment, here illegally, who've committed crimes, never mind entering the country unlawfully. No one objects to them being deported, but if you get people who slip through the net, there's a cry, which I think is completely justified, of where's the due process? Are they going a little too fast on some of this stuff, do you think?
Slip through the net. Like, imagine if this is one of Pierce's families. Because he's an American now. He's protected. But maybe he's not. Maybe he gets deported. Would he say it like that? Would he say, oh, bloody hell, I slipped through the net? Of course he wouldn't.
I don't think they are, actually. I don't think they're going fast enough. And you say that there are people...
Really surprising. I wasn't expecting that for him. I thought they'd be like, oh, they've got to slow down, make sure they're doing the process correctly, make sure they're adhering to the rule of law, because he believes in democracy. It's not death cults, which is ironic because he does believe in death cults.
Who don't object to it. There certainly are. I mean, there are Democrat senators, Democrat representatives, people like the mayor of Boston, Mayor Wu, it is, I think, who said recently, Boston is a city for everyone. Anyone who is in Boston, whether you've just arrived, you're as much a part of Boston as anyone else. And
yeah, that's America. That's the experiment of America, where everybody comes over. You're American. Whatever your ethnicity, race, religion, you come over, you're naturalized, you are an American. It's a melting pot. It's a beautiful country in that way. There's many things to criticize America for, but that is not one of them. You can go over and you're American. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You could be an American Douglas.
And of course, that's crazy. I mean,
not really.
I've often said about the situation...
Not really if you actually care about the founding fathers and what the democratic principles of equality that America was founded on. It's not that crazy, but he doesn't believe in those things. So, yeah, it's crazy to him.
In our country of birth, the UK, you can either have open borders or you can have a welfare state, but you can't have both. In the same way...
Oh, God. Insufferable. He's just so insufferable. I can't even look at his face. He's so smug.
You can't... No country can actually treat somebody who's arrived illegally, even if they haven't committed a crime in America. Nobody...
It's just this assumption based on nothing, by the way, based on no evidence. As I said before, illegal immigrants are less likely to commit crime than the native citizens in America. Evidence. Go and Google it now. Go and stop this video. Go and Google it if you don't believe me.
Sensibly pretend that somebody who's just arrived illegally into, say, Boston has all the same rights as some...
Yeah, but people aren't illegal. That's your framework. But in a country that cares about people, democracy, people are, it's a crazy concept, do have human rights. He doesn't like that, obviously. He's a fascist. But right now, not all people, but some people do have human rights. So I think that's a good thing. Maybe I'm woke. Maybe, I'm just a woke snowflake. But I think human rights are good, personally. Controversial. Hot take there.
Somebody whose family has been paying taxes in Boston for generations. So there are certainly people who object. There are certainly going to be mistakes. But one of the reasons why this is so high stakes and...
Mistakes. Falling through the net. Just people being thrown into El Salvador's torture prisons. It's a mistake. We all make mistakes, don't we? We've all, thrown someone illegally without due process into a El Salvador torture prison. If I had a penny.
Important is not actually just for America. That's the most important thing for Trump and his voters, of course. But it's also whether or not other countries can actually do the same thing, whether other countries can secure their borders and make sure that people who are in the country illegally, especially first and foremost those who've committed crimes, can be deported from the country. Italy is struggling with that. France is struggling with that. Britain is a sort of somewhere before the period of struggling with it. But everyone's facing it, and we know that, and it has to be addressed.
Like I say, we're here as Trump's about to announce the tariffs. Putting aside all the debate about it, do you actually personally...
I would love to see his data on that, in America specifically. Since we're talking about America right now, where's your data for this? And of course, he doesn't have any. He has to say anecdote, he'll refer to specific stories, but he won't give any data. And this is where we're in the realm of feelings, emotions, and irrationality. And he just goes, it is scaremongering. It is pure fear, emotion, and he just doesn't like these people. Even though they contribute greatly. And without them, the American economy would collapse. So he's a hypocrite. Would he overnight want them to all go? Maybe. Would he want the reality of the economy collapsing? Probably not.
think it will work?
I'm open on this. It could work, and it could be a disaster. I mean, it's a long-term vision. That's one of the most important things about this. And the long-term vision on tariffs, as far as I can see, rights a trade problem which the US has had, which Donald Trump, again, for decades has pointed out. And but there will be...
Can you name that trade problem? America, the wealthiest, richest country, most powerful country ever in history. Can we... Okay. All right. No. Okay.
Short-term turmoil, without doubt. So we'll see whether it works. But the one thing I would say, though, which I
thought you said there wasn't chaos before. Short-term turmoil, without doubt. No chaos. It's going to take a while. Which one is it, Douglas?
am concerned about, I think everyone should be concerned about, and a lot of Americans, particularly of the left, but also Republicans, are concerned about, is the extent to which this is being played against American allies in a way which is unwise. I mean, my own view, there are all sorts of criticisms to make of the Canadian government, both under Justin Trudeau and now under Mark Carney. There are all sorts of criticisms, but I don't think America needs to make an enemy of Canada, any more than I think it needs to make an enemy of Denmark. So I think there is some sort of table thumping and some sort of bully behavior that is unappealing. And Donald Trump might better be right on this issue, because if not, not only will he not improve the American economy, he will have made totally unnecessary enemies of some of America's closest and most historic allies.
That's true. Douglas is right. I'll give him that.
I don't always pick the healthiest food options. I'm sure you don't either.
Okay.
We've also seen, I know you had quite strong views about this, the pretty awful scene in the Oval Office when he met President Zelensky, with J.D. Vance piling into Zelensky, then Trump piling into him and so on. It was all pretty unedifying, I thought, at the time, albeit I suspect behind the scenes a lot of that stuff goes on, but we don't normally see it. What did you make of that, and where do you think we really are?
Yeah, Donald Trump is a massive baby. He throws temper tantrums, he's angry, he screams, he swears behind the scenes. And I wish people had more of a sense of who he really is, because, he's very calm, collected in the media. He seems very chill. He's not like that behind the scenes. He's a horrible bully. And I think once people realize that more and more and get a sense of the true man, they will go, actually, yeah, he's not that great. He is just a bully, an insecure bully, like all bullies are.
In getting to a peace deal with the Ukraine war.
The interesting thing, as you know, Piers, is that people saw the same event in the Oval Office and had wildly different interpretations of it. I've spoken to MAGA Republicans who believe that Zelensky was unbelievably rude and disrespectful toward President Trump and Vice President Vance. Maybe it is always a matter of perspective, but I actually watched that unfold in a dugout at the Ukrainian-Russian front line in a trench with one of the units of the Ukrainian army. And I have to say, personally, I felt absolutely sick to my stomach. And that's for several reasons. One is President Trump had previously said, and I'd written very critically of this, that President Zelensky was a dictator, and he implied that Ukraine had been responsible for the start of the war. I disagree with both of those things. I think Vladimir Putin is a dictator, and I think Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine in 2022 and had no right to do so. However, it was already a very tense relationship that was going on, and the blow-up in the Oval Office was just, to my mind, at any rate, heartbreaking. President Zelensky is the one whose country was invaded. He is the one who's been trying to defend the territory of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and to sort of make him into the aggressor instead of the party that that suffered the aggression was very disturbing. The one thing I would say about that, again, it's about a matter of perspective, is, as I wrote in my New York Post column from the front line, I said to one Ukrainian commander I was with, I said, I know you're not meant to keep too much abreast of the news developments and so on, but you must have heard about this. And this Ukrainian soldier said to me, bleep happens all the time, but I've got a job to do. And
Fair play. Douglas Murray is correct on Ukraine, Putin, the whole situation. What's insane to me is that he can say that and simultaneously say somehow Israel is in the right illegally occupying Palestine and what's going on there, the genocide. I just can't understand that cognitive dissonance, how you can hold two things in your mind at the same time, which are essentially the same: an illegal occupation, invasion with Ukraine from Russia, and the same with Israel. Explain it to me.
And I primarily think of and feel for, actually, the soldiers like that on the Ukrainian front line for whom none of this is a game and none of it is about bust-ups between politicians. It's about people fighting on the front line whose family homes are maybe 30 kilometers behind them. And I really hope that a peace deal can be achieved. But and my hope was that the Trump administration's hard ball against the Ukrainians and against Zelensky personally was some kind of precursor to then going to Vladimir Putin and saying, look, we've duffed up the Ukrainians, you better give us something.
That's a bit naive with how Trump really does love Putin and really lays it on. I just don't think Trump is doing the same thing to Putin. He loves the guy. He really respects him. He says he's a great guy. The same with Xi in China. The same with Viktor Orban. He loves these kind of dictator authoritarians. I just don't see that happening. But one thing that is interesting about this is not what most people believe. Most people on the right are actually pro-Russia. So fair play to Douglas Murray on this. He is right on this. I'll give him that on the Ukraine and Russia situation.
Problem is that that hope of mine is slightly falling apart because, perhaps unsurprisingly, the Kremlin hasn't given anything so far, and in fact, its promises to, for instance, stop shelling, sending missiles to key energy infrastructure, they break all the time. They break minutes after making the promise, and I think Vladimir Putin himself is at risk of overstretching, actually, at this point, the goodwill, which, to my mind, slightly inexplicably seems to exist in parts of Washington towards him. I don't think he's by any means an honest actor. I think he's about the most dishonest actor you could have on the world stage. But he should be very careful of riling up President Trump's anger, because if that's directed at Putin, then the game will change yet again.
Will it, though? I'm going to end there. Will it, though? Trump is incredibly weak on this, I think. And he knows it. He knows that now if he gestures towards Zelensky, and what is Putin going to concede? Like Putin, like with the tariffs, Trump think, if I put 34% tariffs on China, they're going to back down. No, people aren't. People are doubling down. Canada's doubling down. Mexico, Europe are coming together. So I don't think Trump is as intelligent as he thinks he is. So on that note, hit the like button and I'll see you in the next video.